The toughest part of SEAL training is Hell Week. Hell Week is considered by many to be the hardest block of training in the U.S. military. We definitely have the highest attrition rate of any block of training, specifically in that week. On average, you'll lose almost 80% of the class will quit during Hell Week. And it is the pruning, if you will. It is the last, I don't want to say the last, but it is probably the biggest training device used in SEAL training to weed out the people who don't have the mental fortitude to endure massive discomfort and pain to want to be there, because they apply it in a myriad of really hard ways. Number one, physically demanding activity for Hell Week lasts a week, almost a week. I mean, it's about 5.5 days, so a work week, if you will. During that week, you get almost no sleep. You'll average about 3 hours of sleep. So probably 72 hours in, you're starting to hallucinate. I remember multiple times I was hallucinating during Hell Week. You're 90% of the time you are wet, cold, and coated in sand. So what's happening is you're chafing holes. A lot of guys chafe holes on the inside of their legs and their groin area and your armpits, on your neck, on top of your head. Not uncommon for guys, toenails and fingernails to fall off or pop off from just being wet. And I don't know what causes that, if maybe a combination of being wet and you're not like sleeping, so your body's not re-regulating. But those are all common things that happen. You're shivering all the time. So what starts to happen, your muscles are locking up from shivering. So now you're like locking up in pain from shivering. Hell Week's so bad that a lot of people will be like, oh my God, this is gross. I'm not the first person to tell this. Like, you'll let someone pee on you to try and be warm for only a few minutes. Like, you'll be huddled with a guy and he's like, I gotta pee. And you're like, dude, just do it, because that's how you literally become primal. It almost becomes like, I just have to survive this. But you also have to think. You still have to exist as a team. You have to get through the evolutions, because it's not like mindless activity. Everything is, you're accomplishing different things, from problem solving to navigating the obstacle course to doing a time run to doing swim, whatever it is. You're doing all these different things, but now you're doing it with the highest levels of stress, pressure, pain, and lack of sleep.
Is the week just cranking up the intensity as it goes along, or?
What's interesting is the week cranks up in the beginning, and then it actually starts to come down. When somebody had told me, and almost probably led me to almost quit, because, in this life, unrealistic expectations, by getting into Wednesday and Thursday, if you were to watch training and you watched those last couple of days and you would watch the first couple of days, you would say, they're not going as hard now. Well, some of that is just, it's impossible. You're literally guiding zombies, if you will, so there's a level of safety with the students that the instructors are making sure, hey, we're not pushing you so hard when you're in this mentally broken down state where, you could sustain injury. So technically, but in your mind, when you're in it, you feel like, it's funny, you think you're like chariots of fire running, like da, 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 da. You're thinking like, I am so fast on Thursday. And literally you're like a broken turtle.
So you finished the training, and I mean, what was that moment like, passing?
All of SEAL training, or when I finished Hell Week?
When you finished, I mean, Hell Week specifically would be...
Hell Week was amazing. I mean, to know that I had finished it. I mean, Hell Week is the biggest crucible of SEAL training. I mean, there's still some other ones, and Hell Week is what bonds every SEAL. And there are frequent times that many of us have talked about that it was your ability to get through Hell Week that later would enable you to grind through the hardest moments in combat. And I mean, I would, my moment in combat became a mental, like it was a focus on staying awake to stay alive. Like I knew that if I let go and closed my eyes and went to sleep, I'd never wake up again. So in some ways that came back to those lessons. And I've talked to other guys that have been shot and in crazy situations where a will to survive and persevere is a really powerful thing. I mean, I think any paramedic or doctor can tell you when someone decides, we may not be able to stay alive indefinitely, but I guarantee you can stay alive if I take one person and give them exact same injuries and one decides he's ready to die, he will die very quickly. Whereas the other one, if they're fighting and fighting and fighting, they will live for a substantially long period of time, because it's amazing the power of the will to live and the will to overcome. And I think that's something that Hell Week and SEAL training teaches you.
I definitely want to go back to the will to survive, but what was the moment that you achieved your goal of becoming a SEAL like?
So fast forward, training, Hell Week is in the very beginning of training. I do want to, it's kind of a funny story just to finish Hell Week. You're so cold during Hell Week and you've been shivering for so long. I remember we were finally secured. We got sent to our rooms, and we had these metal frame, but they had these plastic seats, and I dragged it into the shower, and it was a open bay shower that had 12 shower heads. It was probably 12 feet long and 8 feet across. And I took all the jets and pointed them right at this chair. And I laid in that chair under this hot water and slept for hours. So I'm sure any new students who were there and came in the shower, bro, there's this skinny, shriveled up, naked dude asleep in the shower. So that was I remember pizza, Gatorade, and laying in that shower and just oh my God, trying to warm my frozen soul up. Fast forward to the end of training. I mean, training from Hell Week, you still have 4 months of training before you graduate. Hell Week's actually in the beginning. When you graduate, and then the other thing with that is when you graduate, that doesn't mean you're a SEAL. That just means you've made it through the first phase. I try often in my book, The Trident, I write about that basic underwater demolition SEAL training is kind of like high school. And then you have to go to college. And then they assign you to a platoon. And almost, if you look at it from a medical thing, you got to do residency before you're actually officially a doctor or a practicing doctor. That pipeline is kind of similar to us. So you get assigned to a team after you've gone through some advanced training or college. And then you have to prove yourself, kind of like a residency phase, if you will. So I didn't get my Trident until probably another, year and a half after training. But yeah, pretty amazing moment. Back in the day, it was a huge rite of passage. The entire team would line up. The commanding officer would have all the new guys who were getting their Tridents. And back then, we used to wear camouflage uniforms, and we had black Tridents that the older, the other guys wore in their uniforms. But on your dress uniform, it was a gold Trident. And they would present you with that, but then they would tack in your black Trident and they would punch it into your chest. And man, it was an amazing rite of passage. I mean, yes, there's a picture in my book where my chest is all bruised from having 200 teammates, punch my Trident in. But it's such an amazing rite of passage. And you just feel amazing. Like I'm a part of this community, this warrior community, and I've done all these things to reach this level. Yeah, pretty amazing. They don't do that anymore. Not allowed, that would be hazing is the way they look at it now.
So I mean, in a situation where, I mean, you guys are putting your body through hell anyway, they're not allowed to have those moments anymore.
No, I mean, there are random moments in the military where things got out of hand. That's the problem. And we live in this knee-jerk society where we throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, where maybe a pinning ceremony, whether, I don't know of this occurring in the SEAL teams, but I know in other units where, you know, they were so aggressive with punching and, you know, that, you know, it like punctured a lung or it did some long-term damage. So it became, hey, this will never happen again. You know, it's unfortunate. I think there is culture and traditions that make us into who we are. That's a part of the fabric of a warrior culture, a national culture. And because one person says this isn't fair, we don't like this, or we happen to have a couple of one-off instances, then we say we can no longer do this. So it's unfortunate. I do think that was, for me, it was an amazing rite of passage.
As many of you know, we are independent creators and filmmakers, but there is a massive attack on us right now. Traditional media over the last few years has started to slowly die. They are no longer the independent voice that you first thought they were. That's why we've created Mulligan Brothers Patreon. We've built something special for our most dedicated supporters, and I want to break it down for you real quick. The supporter tier gets you ad-free early access to both video and audio versions of Mulligan Brothers interviews 24 hours before it goes public. The executive tier gets you everything that a supporter tier gets, plus more. Exclusive interviews and behind the scenes content, walk and talks, daily routines, unreleased interviews, the stuff that you don't see anywhere else. And finally, the executive producer tier. Everything from the supporter tier and the executive tier, plus exclusive perks. Access to our treatment packages. Be the first to see which guests are coming up and get insight into the topics we'll be discussing before anyone else. And you'll even get an executive producer credit on every single documentary that we make. So if you've ever wanted to support the Mulligan Brothers mission of inspiring change so we can go around the world and get these stories that nobody else will, this is exactly how you do it. Go to patreon.com/Mulligan Brothers or click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. Join the community and help us inspire change.